Hello and namaste. My name is Shailini Sheikh Amin. Thank you, Brent Council, Brent Museum and Archives, Gujarati Diaspora event, Roots and Changes and Gujarati Influences. I'm so delighted to be a part of this event, and my talk is going to be something related to textile, which is the oldest tradition of Gujarat and the cultures that it has related. It is about warps and wefts of cotton yarns of Gujarat, connecting cultures and community. I am Shailini Sheikh Amin. I am a founder of a social enterprise, Moral Fiber. We have been working to reinvent and revive khadi and handcrafted fabrics. Khadi is a pride of India and it is a significant part of the world textile history. I was trained as an architect, and my field of work has been energy efficiency and sustainable practices, conservation programs, and heritage support to buildings, people, and places. Um, Preparing for this presentation was a great interest and fascination for me. I lived in Gujarat and I was rooted in Gujarati culture. My Gujarati husband was born in East Africa. He was an officer in the Royal Air Force, so this made me a part of Gujarati diaspora, and we lived in England for many years. During my stay and with my family connection, I met many fascinating people of East African diaspora and others as well. Like many others, our family is now spread across many English speaking countries. I have been fortunate to be a witness to some of the historical milestones, of course, many times remotely, uh, of the time of the textile and history of Gujarat. So I would be really looking forward to presenting some of my personal observations and experiences and also the history of connecting cultures that I see it. Connecting cultures and communities of the world by textiles of Gujarat and Gujarati has been one of the most rewarding journey for me. The presentation is divided in several parts. I will try to touch upon the historical and present diaspora context and these textile traditions. I wanted to do a lot more interviews and visits, but unfortunately, because of the pandemic, all that didn't happen. The presentation is going to be divided in three parts. Number one is India, a cradle of cotton of the world, and the unique skills and textile traditions of Gujarat. How does that fit in, and how does it promote the Indian culture and textile worldwide? Number two is the textile mills of Gujarat, Manchester to Ahmedabad to the rest of the world. Many of you know that Gujarat and especially Ahmedabad was called the Manchester of India, and so I'll tell you a little bit about that and various other textile mills. And the third one, which is from Gandhi, Khadi to India's freedom movement, and that leads to the world sustainability and circularity movement. I'm going to talk about that as well. The history of fabrics of India, like most other crafts, was a group of people's combined expertise which was converted into trade. For generations, hand spun, hand woven, hand dyed, hand block printed, and processed fabrics were a third pillar of rural economy after farming and animal husbandry. Cotton was grown in many regions in fallow land. It was mostly a rain fed crop with no extra water, no chemicals, no pesticides. Each region and each community of India had their own way of wearing clothes. They all wore different clothes in different styles. These diverse needs were met by thousands of local artisans and they earned regular income out of that. Gujarat was a textile capital for centuries. Dry coastal region produced cotton that was hand spun and hand woven by skillful artisans, and many different regional clusters were known for processing, dyeing the fabrics, and block printing. Some adventurous traders used to trade these fabrics in faraway lands. The skills, acquired knowledge from generations, and working with growing trade brought them immense prosperity. The wealth got distributed in rural household, and this was one of the reasons why India was called Sone ki Chiriya, a golden bird. Gujarat has the longest coastline on Indian states. Mentions of 84 ports of Gujarat coastline are found. Some ports of Gujarat are mentioned in some of the oldest books of India, Greece, and Rome. Archaeologists have discovered ruins of ports town of the 3rd and 2nd millennium BC. A map produced by the Egyptian in the 1st and the 3rd century showing sea trade routes in Erythraean Sea, which is now called the Indian Ocean, between India, Africa, and southern Europe. The ports were known to trade with ships called dhao that were made in Gujarat. Till now, they were made in Mandavi, Kutch, with ports of Africa, Europe, and Middle East, as well as the Far East. One of the oldest ports mentioned is Bari Gaze. Now it is called Bharuch in South Gujarat. The Kutchi ports and Kutchi vessels find their mentions, and the trade was with old countries like Sumer, Phoenicia, Rome, Egypt, Arabia, Iran, Africa, Lanka, Brahmadesh, Malaya, Java, Sumatra, and China. And mentions are found in so many places of all these fascinating places where the traders used to go and be adventurous. Gujarati diaspora was spread from Surat region, from Gulf of Khambat, and from Gulf of Kutch. I tried to get some information on Gujarati diaspora in ancient times in other countries. Gujaratis have migrated due to trade mainly, and also because of famine, pandemic, and family feuds. It was easy and possible for them to leave because regular sea links were available to go to other places. Cultural interconnectedness was evident through influences of language. Mid Europe, Slovakian countries and the Far Eastern countries have many words that are originated from Sanskrit. There is a very interesting saying in Gujarati. It says, Jave jeko nar gayo, nave mandir mai, jo jave thi aviyo, pariya pariya khai. The man who goes to Java, which was one of the prominent trading ports of Southeast Asia, he would never come back. If he does, he would bring so much wealth that his generation after generation would live on it. So, says a lot about the trading expertise of our khas Gujaratis. Mentions are found in India, traded textile in Africa and Europe in those times. In 17th and 18th century, Indian fabrics was even used as a currency in Africa. There was a very vibrant Gujarati diaspora within Indian states too. An anthropological surveys conducted in India, about 60% of the people claim that their community is a migrant to their states in region. So the people were intermigrating all the time. In Gujarat, that number is around 70% in the state. For example, Auditya Brahmins claim migration from present-day Uttar Pradesh, the Ahirs from Dwarka, Soda from Sindh. Gujaratis are also found in almost all states of India for trade and earning their fortunes. The enriched range of textiles of Gujarat owes it to the people of different communities, castes, tribes, and regions who received conducive working condition and patronage. Gujarat and Gujaratis have remained at the forefront of textile history of the world, be it a patola making or of Patan, Bandhani of Jamnagar, Ajrak, that is a block printing of Kutch. Let's start talking a little bit about each of them. Bandhani work was started by Khatri community in Kutch and Saurashtra. The term Bandhani is derived from the word bandhan, that means tying up. A fabric is pinched and tied with threads to make different patterns. Then the fabric is dyed and threads are opened. As a design made by the master craftsman, there would be 5 or 10 large or hundreds of tiny dots remain unprinted in the small piece of fabric, making fabulous patterns. The earliest evidence of Bandhani dates back to Indus Valley civilization, where dyeing was done in as early as 4000 BC. The earliest example of most pervasive type of Bandhani dots can be seen in the 6th century paintings depicting the life of Buddha found in the wall of cave 1 at Ajanta in the Maharashtra region. Although now made everywhere, traditionally these were made in 3 main centers in Bhuj, Jamnagar and Rajkot. Rajasthan is another state of India where a center of Bandhani work is there, but they have the different colors and different patterns. So initially it was used to be made with mulberry silk and fine cotton, But now, Bandhani is still very popular, that we all know, and it is made on chiffon, georgette, crepe silk, and various other fabrics. Let me tell you the story about Garcholu. I think many of you would know that Garcholu is a wedding sari, and that is worn by the bride. It's a very special one, generally made out of red color and sometimes with green. It is a kind of a check pattern of golden zari that is woven in the silk, and then those squares, which could be 2 inches or 3 inches, are then put in with the bandhani work. So you have motifs like kumbha and parrot and flower and kanya and all of that that were made in the bandhani. Now this takes me to another trade, which is a zari making industry, which is of Surat, and it's been there for I don't know how many years, thousands of years, and it is still there in small clusters. Origin of making zari is not even exactly known. However, some ancient Hindu literature, such as Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Rigveda, mention about it. In ancient history, the 3rd century BC, related to Megasthenes, who traveled in that area, he mentions the fabric made of gold. Zari is made by twisting gold-coated silver yarns with silk or cotton yarns. The Surat zari was, and even now, is used in Banarasi saris in Uttar Pradesh in north, to Kanjivaram saris in Tamil Nadu in the south, and everywhere in between. From time immemorial to today, Surat is one of the biggest and most significant zari manufacturing centers in India. The zari made in Surat now are in 2 types: the real metallic zari made with gold and few pure metals, and the imitation zari, which is now made with plastics. Initially, the zari used to go to Khambat to weave Garcholu. Interestingly, now Garcholu is woven in Andhra Pradesh or in Karnataka with the zari work, because the weaver community in Khambat is diminishing. It is now brought from there, and then the bandhani work is done in Gujarat. This kind of a cross-country cultural influences have continued within India from time to time. So this is one of the interesting example. Patola now.
Patan Patola saris are well known for their vivid colors and distinctive geometrical style. Once an exclusive inheritance of royalty and aristocracy, these saris still are a prized possession. Considered sacred in many communities, these hand-woven wonders are a result of months of tedious work. Patan was once the capital of the mighty Solankis who ruled Gujarat. About 900 years ago, King Kumarapala brought around 700 Patola craftsmen from the Salvi community in Jalna, Maharashtra to Patan. This silk is the only one of its kind in the world. In Patola, the final design coloring is made on the thread itself, and the coloring is done on the warp and the weft threads, a technique called the double ikkat. Mathematical precision is used to ensure the accuracy of design when woven, a skill that hasn't been replicated anywhere else. The raw silk brought from the silk market is twisted to give strength to the fabric. The silk yarn is tied using cotton threads as per the required pattern. The tied portion is meant to remain unexposed to the color while dyeing. The warp and the weft threads are tied separately. Coloring of the silk yarn is done with vegetable extracts and natural colors, usually from flowers, roots, barks, etc., and also with acid dyes. Exposed portion of the yarn is dyed with the first color. The parts that are dyed are then tied with threads tightly, and the open parts are immersed in the second color. This is repeated for every color required for the warp and weft yarns and takes a few months. This process is called resist dyeing. It is highly mathematical and unimaginably difficult. After the dyeing is complete, The warp threads are put in a sequence on the loom to weave the cloth. The weaving is done on a traditional harness loom made of rosewood and bamboo strips. The patola loom is one of its kind in many ways. It is tilted to one side and requires two people to work together. The rosewood sword-shaped stick called V, used for adjusting the yarns, is also used only with the patola loom, and the salvis get their name from it. The weft threads are wound onto bobbins and kept in the bamboo shuttle for weaving. The right side weaver operates the V stick and puts the shuttle in. The wefts are woven in and set according to the pattern with the warp threads. Both weavers check for accuracy and adjust with quill-like needles for perfect alignment. The tension of the warp threads is removed using needles after 8 to 10 inches of fabric are woven. Typically, designs include elephants, human figures, kalash, flowers, shikar, pan, parrot, etc. Intricate designs from heritage architecture of Gujarat are also seen on these beautiful saris. Patola involves intensive manual work, utmost fortitude and exactitude. Weavers work day and night to create these masterpieces.
Good news is that they are now slowly moving to more varied production. With designer intervention, new patterns and colors are introduced, and also stoles and other smaller pieces that are in high demand are made. In fact, ikat, the word normally used for this technique, is an Indonesian word, and that means bind. Traditionally, single ikat fabrics were made and worn in Malaysia, Indonesia, Sumatra, and many times the patterns are used to have cultural and religious significance. Single ikat is even made now in Rajkot, Surendranagar in Gujarat, and also in Andhra Pradesh and Odisha in India. So, single ikat and double ikat are families, but double ikat pattern patola holds a prime position. It is interesting to note that bandhani is a tie and dye technique used after the fabric is made, while patola is tie and dye technique used while preparing the yarn. And that comparison is interesting, that they both have some kind of a similarity but completely different results and different kind of products. Mashru is a mixed fabric woven with a combination of cotton and silk. It was originally used by Muslim men as they were prohibited from wearing pure silk. This weaving technique was prevalent in Iraq and the Arab countries. This craft had grown primarily out of the Gujarati diaspora. Trading it across the seas might have been the influencing factor for the rise of Mashru tradition in India. It was once woven in the whole country, but it has now been confined to our state boundaries of Gujarat, and Patan is still the main center of making Mashru. Ajrak is a unique form of block printing found mostly in Sindh, Pakistan, and by Sindhi community now living in Ajrakpur in Kutch. It is a neighboring region of Sindh. These prints display special use of dyes and designs and patterns made using block printing by stamps. The richness, uniqueness and popularity is present even today, and a large Sindhi Khatri community work on it along with national and international designers and students. Gujarat's textile story is incomplete without its extremely rich and varied embroidery and embellishment heritage. Ahir and Rabari, the nomadic communities, specialize in embroidery using vibrantly colored threads and mirrors on black fabric or other dark colored surfaces. Embroidery commonly done by Mochi community, which are the leather shoe workers, have a different style. The jarts of Kutch use beads, mirror and colorful threads to create beautiful designs on fabric, which is known as Heer Bharat. The women of the Luhana community in Bani have their own unique style of embroidery. The Matwa community living in Bani has perfected almost all the styles of embroidery and made them their own. Women of the Darji community, which are tailors in Saurashtra, specialize in the art of katab or applique work, which is commonly known as patchwork. The women of Vora community in Siddhapur and other places do absolutely exquisite crochet lace work. These forms of embroidery are passed on from generation to generation. The girls in these communities are taught embroidery at a very early age by their mothers, and usually they embroider their own wedding trousseau, which is the whole box of gifts that they are given. Now, saris, salwar kameezes, stoles, shawls, curtains, cushion covers, and bedspreads are also made using these techniques. These skills and these unique craft pieces are appreciated and valued by everybody. Thousands of women have been encouraged and supported to turn these skills into the work opportunity. But things have changed on the ground now. In the time of freedom of expression, democratic outlook, most of the young people dress the same, what is promoted by the media as smart, anywhere look, which is jeans, t-shirts, kurtas and kurtis. Contemporary synthetic saris from Surat are also very popular among these communities. They now do not want to look different or be differentiated. When the purpose of craft is changed completely from the personal to business and from culture to commerce, the meaningful linkages are diminishing. They are being replaced with something else. At least the good thing is that this has helped these crafts not being forgotten and left aside. We would like to see the children of these artisans and other practitioners become talented designers. They get to do the product placement right and be creative without losing the essence. Some dynamic work is done in this direction as well in the recent past. I'm going to talk about it in my next sessions. Thank you.